For generations, the Blackwood pack and the Silvermane pack had been locked in a bitter war over territory and ancient grievances. The forests of the Pacific Northwest ran red with their rivalry. Alpha Adrian Blackwood, a formidable wolf with a pelt as dark as midnight and eyes that glowed like embers, was raised on stories of Silvermane treachery. His opposite, the aging and ruthless Alpha Gideon Silvermane, preached the same about the Blackwoods. Caught between them was Gideon's only daughter, Princess Aurora. Sheltered, fierce, and possessing a rare silver-white pelt that shimmered under the moon, she was her father's most prized possession and his most protected secret. She was also hopelessly, tragically curious about the world beyond her borders. Their first meeting was an accident. Adrian, patrolling the blurred edges of his territory, caught a scent that was both alien and intoxicating, wild lilac and fresh snow. It led him to a hidden glade, a neutral zone both packs avoided out of superstition. There, bathed in a beam of moonlight, was a she-wolf of breathtaking beauty. Her silver fur glowed, and her intelligent blue eyes widened not in fear, but in startling recognition. "You're him," she whispered, her human voice soft as velvet. "The Blackwood Alpha." Adrian shifted seamlessly into his human form, muscles rippling in the cool air. He was every inch the Alpha, tall, broad-shouldered, with a commanding presence that made the very air still. "And you are Gideon's daughter. You're either very brave or very foolish to be here." "Perhaps both," Aurora said, shifting as well. She was tall and willowy, with hair the color of moonlight and a defiance in her gaze that belied her delicate appearance. "I wanted to see the monster for myself." A slow, dangerous smile spread across Adrian's face. "And what do you see?" What should have been a confrontation crackled with an undeniable, electric tension. They talked for hours, circling each other with words instead of claws. They discovered a shared frustration with the endless war, a similar love for their people, and a wicked, matching sense of humor. He made her laugh with a dry, sarcastic wit she never expected. She challenged his every assumption with a sharp mind that left him reeling. As the moon began to set, they knew they had to part. "This is insanity," Adrian breathed, his face inches from hers. "Complete madness," Aurora agreed, yet she didn't pull away. Their first kiss was not gentle. It was a collision of forbidden desire, a claiming and a surrender that left them both breathless and shaken. It was the beginning of a secret affair, a series of stolen moments in the hidden glade that fueled a love as powerful as it was perilous. Their secret was discovered by Aurora's betrothed, a brutish wolf from an allied pack named Corbin. Fueled by jealousy, he didn't tell Gideon directly. Instead, he ambushed Aurora during one of her clandestine trips, intending to drag her back and claim her by force. Corbin's grudge against Adrian was a misinterpretation of circumstance. He was not just a brute from an allied pack. He was the eldest son of Alpha Boran of the Stoneclaw pack. The Stoneclaws were a smaller, fiercely proud pack whose strength lay in their rugged endurance and unwavering loyalty to those who earned it. Their alliance with the Silvermanes was strategic. Gideon offered them protection from northern rogues in exchange for their warriors' strength. 9 years ago, when Adrian was a young, fiery beta under his father's rule, a border skirmish erupted between the Blackwoods and a group of rogues. The fight spilled into unclaimed land, but also dangerously close to Stoneclaw territory. Corbin, then a young warrior eager to prove himself, was on a patrol with his younger brother, Finn. Finn was the opposite of Corbin, not as strong, but clever, kind, and beloved by their pack. Hearing the sounds of battle, Corbin, against protocol, insisted they investigate, hoping to catch a Blackwood in a transgression they could report to Gideon. They stumbled upon the tail end of the fight. Adrian, in his wolf form, was locked in a brutal clash with the rogue leader. In the chaotic fray, the rogue leader disengaged and, seeing the two new wolves, lunged at the smaller, easier target, Finn. It was a blur of teeth and fur. Adrian, seeing an innocent about to be mauled, reacted instantly. He slammed into the rogue, saving Finn's life, but the force of the impact sent the rogue crashing directly into Finn. The rogue's claws found their mark on Finn's throat before Adrian could deliver the killing blow. To Corbin, who was rushing to help, the scene that burned into his memory was not one of salvation, but of tragedy. the massive Blackwood beta, Adrian, colliding with the rogue, a chaotic tangle of bodies, and his brother falling, bleeding out onto the forest floor. The rogue was dead a second later by Adrian's jaws, but it was too late for Finn. Adrian, recognizing the stone claw markings and realizing the gravity of the situation, shifted to explain. But Corbin, cradling his dying brother, saw only the enemy. He heard Adrian saying, "I tried to save him." The rogue. Corbin interpreted it as nothing but hollow excuses from the wolf whose actions had directly led to his brother's death. Gideon Silvermane, when he heard the report, seized the opportunity. He consoled the grieving Alpha Boran and Corbin, but he carefully nurtured the narrative. "See," Gideon whispered. "The Blackwood's violence knows no bounds. Their carelessness took your son, your brother. Their aggression is a plague that must be contained." He offered the Stoneclaws a blood price and a formal alliance, sealed by the promise that one day, Corbin would mate with Princess Aurora. For Corbin, this promise became his entire purpose. So, when Corbin discovered Aurora was secretly meeting with the very man he held responsible for his brother's death, it wasn't just betrayal. It was Adrian Blackwood taking something from him again. First his brother, now his promised mate and his path to vengeance. His hatred, stewed for years on Gideon's lies and his own grief, exploded. He wasn't just trying to drag Aurora back to her father. He was trying to reclaim what he believed Adrian had stolen from him. Adrian, sensing her distress through a bond he hadn't even realized had formed, erupted into the clearing. The fight was brutal. Corbin was strong, but Adrian was an alpha defending his mate. With a final powerful lunge, Adrian ended the threat, his teeth at Corbin's throat. It was at that moment that Gideon and his warriors arrived, drawn by the noise. They saw only the scene before them, the Blackwood Alpha standing over the body of Aurora's promised mate, with their terrified princess looking on. Gideon's roar of fury shook the trees. "You beast! You've killed my ally and corrupted my daughter. This means war." The hatred did not begin with Adrian, it began with his father, the formidable Alpha Thorin Blackwood. Gideon and Thorin were not always bitter enemies. In their youth, they were rivals, yes, but there was a grudging respect. They were the two strongest alphas of their generation. Decades ago, to settle a territorial dispute without all-out war, the packs agreed to a traditional alphas duel during the blood moon. The stakes were the fertile, sunken valley, a territory both packs coveted. Gideon, then a new alpha eager to prove himself, fought Thorin. The fight was legendary and brutal. Gideon was winning, his speed and cunning outmatching Thorin's raw power. He had Thorin pinned, his jaws at his throat, ready to force a surrender. But in a desperate, controversial move, Thorin rolled, using a dangerous and dishonorable technique that involved going for the hamstring instead of the dominant pin. The move permanently lamed Gideon's right hind leg. Thorin claimed victory. Gideon claimed treachery. He saw Thorin not as a victor, but as a cheat who valued land over honor. The humiliation of the limp he carried for the rest of his life was a constant, physical reminder of that day. He swore vengeance not just on Thorin, but on his entire bloodline. The true, secret heart of Gideon's hatred was his younger sister, Lysandra, captured by Thorin's seduction. She was the light of the Silvermane pack, beautiful, kind, and fiercely independent. She also secretly fell in love with a handsome, intense Blackwood warrior she met in the neutral territories. That warrior was the young beta, Thorin. Their affair was the ultimate betrayal in Gideon's eyes. When he discovered it, he locked Lysandra away, forbidding her from ever seeing the dishonorable cheat again. But Lysandra, heartbroken and defiant, ran away to be with Thorin. A month later, tragedy struck. A party of Silvermane hunters, enforcers loyal to Gideon who were patrolling the border with overly aggressive orders to repel any Blackwood, stumbled upon Lysandra and Thorin in the woods. A fight ensued. In the chaos, Lysandra was caught in the crossfire. A Silvermane arrow, meant for a Blackwood, struck her down. From Gideon's perspective, the story was clear. Thorin Blackwood, the cheating, dishonorable alpha, had seduced his sister, lured her from her home, and gotten her killed. He refused to see the role his own aggression and hatred played. He built a shrine to her memory in his mind, forever blaming the Blackwoods for stealing his sister's light and life. 4 years, Gideon nurtured his hatred, waiting for a chance to destroy Thorin. But time passed. Thorin sired a son, Adrian, groomed to be a perfect, powerful alpha. Gideon watched from afar, his hate festering with the passing of time. Then, Thorin died of a sudden illness. Gideon was robbed of his vengeance. His lifelong enemy had escaped his wrath. All of that hatred, that burning need for retribution for his lameness and his sister's death, had no place to go. It transferred, wholly and completely, onto Thorin's spitting image, Adrian. Aurora's screams of explanation were drowned out by the snarls of the Silvermane wolves. Adrian was forced to retreat, his heart shattering as he saw Aurora dragged away, her eyes locked on his, filled with tears and a silent promise. The war erupted with a new, terrible ferocity. Adrian fought with a cold, ruthless rage, but his heart was absent. He was a shell, going through the motions of a leader while dying inside. Gideon's own beta, an older wolf named Elara who had helped raise Aurora. She had seen the change in the princess, the light in her eyes after her meetings with Adrian, a light that had been extinguished after her imprisonment. She also saw how Gideon's obsession with vengeance was bleeding their pack dry. Elora secretly reached out to Adrian. She revealed the truth. Corbin had been the aggressor. More importantly, she told him Aurora was not just imprisoned. Gideon, in a last-ditch effort to secure her loyalty and break her spirit, was forcing her into a political mating ceremony with a new, even more powerful ally at the next full moon. Adrian's despair turned into a razor-sharp plan. He would not lead an army to his mate's door. That would guarantee her death. He would go alone. For her, he would risk everything. The night of the ceremony, the Silvermane stronghold was alight with torches and noise. Hidden in the shadows, Adrian moved like a ghost. With Elora's help, he slipped past the guards and found the tower where Aurora was being held. She was dressed in an elaborate silver gown, her face a mask of despair. When the door opened, she expected her jailer. Instead, she found her love. "Adrian!" she gasped, disbelief washing over her. "I told you I'd find you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm getting you out of here." Their escape was a thrilling chase through the fortress, a mix of heart-pounding tension and dark comedy. At one point, Adrian shoved a pursuing guard into a storage closet full of feathers, creating a sputtering, cursing cloud of white. They fought side by side, their movements perfectly synced, a deadly dance they had never practiced but knew by heart. They broke free into the forest, but Gideon himself gave chase, his rage giving him speed. On a cliff overlooking the two warring territories, father and daughter faced off. "He has poisoned your mind, Aurora," Gideon roared. "Come back to your pack. You poisoned my life with your hate." Aurora cried out, her voice strong and clear for the first time. "I am not your pawn. I am his mate. My loyalty is to him, and to a future where our packs are not drowning in blood." Seeing his daughter's unwavering resolve, the truth in her eyes, and the way the Blackwood Alpha stood not as a conqueror, but as her protector, something in Gideon broke. The fight drained out of him. He saw not an enemy, but the man his daughter loved. With a weary, defeated sigh, he turned and vanished into the trees, calling off his hunters. Adrian led Aurora to a sacred cave deep within Blackwood territory, a place of hot springs and soft moss, known only to the Alpha. The air was warm and steamy, thick with the scent of earth and minerals. The adrenaline of their escape melted away, leaving only the raw, pulsing truth between them. They were free. They were together. "I thought I lost you," Adrian murmured, his forehead pressed against hers, his hands cradling her face. "You never could," Aurora whispered back. "My soul has always been yours." This time, their kiss was not one of stolen desperation, but of a profound and claiming love. It was slow, deep, and promised forever. Clothes were shed not in a frantic rush, but with reverent hands, each touch a discovery, a worship of the skin they had fought so hard to finally touch without fear. He laid her down on the soft furs, his body covering hers, a welcome weight. His lips traced the line of her jaw, her throat, the sensitive curve of her shoulder, eliciting soft gasps and moans. Every kiss, every caress, was a seal on their bond. When he finally entered her, it was with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. It was a joining of bodies, souls, and destinies. Their climax was a simultaneous, shuddering release that echoed through the cave, a silent howl of completion that cemented their bond for all eternity. In the aftermath, wrapped in each other's arms, they made plans. Not for war but for peace. With their union, a new alliance was born, the Silverwood Pact. It was not an easy peace. Old hatreds die hard. There were disputes and disagreements, often settled with comical exasperation by Adrian and Aurora in their shared leadership. But the bleeding had stopped. Under the next full moon, Alpha Adrian and Luna Aurora stood together on the same cliff where their war had ended, watching the pups of both packs, Blackwood and Silvermane, play together in the moonlight, their joyful barks and yips the only sound that mattered. They had faced insurmountable odds, tragedy, and betrayal, but they had found their happy ending in each other's arms, forever bound by a love as wild and enduring as the moon itself. 2 years passed in quick succession. The werewolves lived in peace and harmony under the supreme leadership of Alpha Adrian and Luna Aurora. Men and women from all walks of the realm gathered at the pack to celebrate the birth of Prince Kale, the heir to Adrian's throne. Under a full moon, wolves from both packs mingled, their scents no longer marking enemy territory but one unified community. At the center of it all, Alpha Adrian and Luna Aurora stood on a raised dais, their hands clasped, their bond a palpable force of warmth and strength that washed over their people. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the joyful howls of a hard-won peace, or so they thought. As Adrian raised a chalice to make a toast to their future, a sudden, unnatural silence fell. The night birds stopped singing. The wind died. The very forest seemed to hold its breath. Then, a sound began. A haunting, melodic humming that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was beautiful, yet it carried an edge of ice that made for stand on end and primal fear clutch at every heart. The wolves, one by one, began to whimper and lower their heads, a deep instinctual terror overwhelming them. From the mist rising off the nearby river, a figure emerged. She was breathtakingly, terrifyingly beautiful. Her skin had the faint shimmer of abalone, her hair flowed like dark water, and her eyes were the deep, drowning green of the ocean depths. She moved with an unnatural grace, the ground seeming to frost over with a thin layer of rime where she stepped. She was a creature of legend, one not seen in these inland territories for centuries, a siren. Her gaze swept over the cowering wolves with cold amusement before locking onto Adrian. A possessive, hungry smile played on her lips. Adrian, her voice was a melody that promised oblivion and ecstasy in the same note. It washed over him, and for a terrifying second, he felt a pull, a compulsion to step toward her. Aurora's grip on his hand tightened, her own wolf emitting a low, defensive growl. The siren's smile widened. "How you have grown, my little wolf. From a promising pup to a magnificent alpha. I have so enjoyed watching you." Adrian shook his head, fighting the allure in her voice. "Who are you? What do you want? You do not remember," she purred, gliding closer. The wolves parted before her like a sea. The storm. The river swollen and raging. The little Blackwood heir, swept away from his pack, drowning in the cold, dark water. A flash of memory hit Adrian, a childhood terror he'd buried. A flash flood. The world swallowed by churning, icy water. The feeling of giving up. And then, a song. A beautiful, calming song. A pair of strong, cold arms pulling him to shore. The glimpse of a beautiful face before he lost consciousness. "You," he breathed, stunned. "You saved me." "I claimed you," the siren corrected, her voice hardening. "I marked you that day as mine. A pet project. A future consort worthy of my power. I have been waiting in the depths, patient, allowing you to come into your strength. Allowing you to settle your petty squabbles." She waved a dismissive hand at the gathered packs, her eyes lingering on Aurora with open contempt. She returned her hungry gaze to Adrian. And now, the wait is over. The time for play is done. You are ripe. This display of power, uniting these mongrels, it proves your worth. You will come with me. You will rule the hidden realms at my side. This, she sneered, looking at the packs and at Aurora, is beneath you. Aurora stepped forward, her silver fur bristling just beneath her skin, her voice shaking with rage and defiance. He is not yours. He is my mate. He belongs here, with his pack. The siren laughed, a sound like shattering ice. Mate? You think your puppy love bond can compare to the claim of a primordial siren? I have sung empires to their watery graves. I have lured leviathans to their doom. Your little wolf bond is a candle against my hurricane. She focused on Adrian, and her song intensified, weaving through his mind, pulling at the oldest, most primal parts of his wolf. It promised untold power, ancient secrets, and a dominion beyond his wildest dreams. It was a siren's call tailored perfectly for an alpha's deepest desires. Come, Adrian, she commanded, her voice now laced with undeniable power. Your true crown awaits. Leave these fleeting creatures to their fleeting lives. Immortality and power eternal are your birthright, granted by me. Adrian gritted his teeth, a war raging within him. The compulsion was immense, a tidal wave threatening to wash away his will. He looked at Aurora, at the love and fear in her eyes. He looked at his people, their newfound peace shattered by this ancient evil. He took a shuddering breath, and with every ounce of his will, he forced himself to take a step back, closer to Aurora. No, he growled, the word tearing from his throat. My crown is here. My mate is here. My pack is here. I am no one's pet. I am Alpha of the Silverwood Pact, and you are not welcome in our territory. The siren's beautiful face contorted into a mask of fury. The air grew deathly cold. Foolish wolf, she hissed, the melody now a discordant, threatening shriek. You are mine. I do not ask. I do not negotiate. I take. She raised her hands, and the river behind her began to churn violently. If you will not come willingly, I will drown everything you have built. I will turn your beloved packs against each other with a song of madness. I will make you watch as I destroy your Luna, and then, you will come anyway. The scene opens not on a battlefield, but on a nursery. The air, once thick with the sweet scents of milk and baby powder, is now acrid with smoke and the coppery tang of blood. The walls of the newly built packhouse are scarred with deep gouges, and the night outside is pierced by the agonized howls of wounded wolves. Alpha Adrian stands in the doorway, his chest heaving, a deep, bloody gash across his torso weeping onto the floor. Behind him, the great hall is in shambles. Luna Aurora is on her knees, her silver-white fur matted with mud and blood, a shallow but painful-looking wound across her shoulder being tended to by a frantic Elara. Their twin sons, a year old and the heart of the entire pack, had been safely tucked away in this inner room, guarded by their most trusted warriors. They were no match for her. Queen Seraphine did not come with an army. She came with a song. A melody that had slithered through the cracks in the pack's defenses, a lullaby of despair that sapped the will to fight from even the strongest warriors. By the time the water from the river had risen in a terrifying, impossible wave, crashing through the western wall, most of the pack was already on their knees, hands over their ears, weeping uncontrollably. Adrian and Aurora, their mate bond a shield against the worst of the psychic assault, had fought like demons. Adrian, in his mighty black wolf form, had lunged for Seraphine, only to be thrown back by a concussive blast of sound that left his ears ringing. Aurora had tried to get to the nursery, but a whip of solidified water had lashed out, slicing her shoulder and sending her crashing into a wall. The fight was over in minutes. A display of power so absolute it was humiliating. Now, the nursery is freezing cold. In the center of the room, where a mobile of carved wooden moons once spun, a pillar of shimmering, crystalline ice holds the wailing form of their son, Kale. He is trapped, his small face red and tear-streaked, tiny fists beating against his magical prison. Seraphine stands beside it, one long, elegant finger tracing the ice. She is pristine. Not a hair out of place, not a drop of water or blood on her gown of woven mist and kelp. She looks up as Adrian enters, a smile of profound pity on her face. "Look at you," she murmurs, her voice a soft, deadly melody. "The mighty Alpha, brought so low. All this struggle. For what?" "Give me my son," Adrian snarls, his voice a raw, guttural thing. His claws are out, his eyes burning with ember-hot rage, but he is powerless to move. He knows one wrong step and the ice could contract, snuffing out his child's life in an instant. Aurora stumbles in behind him, her face a mask of maternal terror. "Please," she begs, the word tearing from her throat. "He's just a baby. Take me instead." Seraphine's gaze flicks to Aurora with dismissive amusement. You are the anchor that keeps him here in this mud and blood existence. You are the chain I must break." Her eyes return to Adrian, and they soften with a possessive, terrifying longing. "It is not the child I want, little wolf. It is you." She gestures to the ice prison. Kale's cries have softened to weak, hiccuping sobs. "This one, he has your eyes. And a spark of your spirit. He would make a fine heir for the depths, in time. I could raise him to forget you. To forget all of this." Her words are a carefully crafted torture. She leans closer to the ice, as if sharing a secret with the infant. "Or, his lungs are so small. The cold is so deep. He is so very fragile." Adrian takes a step forward, a broken sound escaping him. "Don't." "Then here is my offer," Seraphine says, her voice now clear and sharp, cutting through the chaos of the devastated packhouse. "A trade. A life for a life." She finally turns fully to face him, her presence expanding to fill the room. "You will come with me, willingly, of your own free will. You will renounce your ties to this land, this pack, and this she-wolf. You will embrace the power I offer and take your place at my side. Do this, and I will release the pup. He will remain here, with her, to live his little life in the sun." She lets the horrific offer hang in the air. "Refuse me," she adds, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "And I will leave him here as a statue of ice for you to remember your choice by. A monument to your selfishness." Aurora cries out, "Adrian, no. You can't." But Adrian is not looking at her. He is looking at his son. His child, whose life is measured in breaths he can no longer take. He sees the future Seraphine offers, a gilded cage in the abyss, an eternity of power in exchange for his soul, his mate, his freedom. He looks at Aurora, his heart shattering at the devastation on her face. They had overcome everything, rival packs, a blood feud, a tyrant father, only to be broken by a love that was too strong, by a threat they could never have anticipated. His shoulders slump. The fight drains out of him. The Alpha who united two packs, who defied a siren's call, is gone. In his place is a father. He meets Seraphine's triumphant gaze, his voice flat and empty of everything but resolve. "Release him," Adrian says, the words final and absolute. "And I am yours." The air in the mist-shrouded clearing by the river was thick with the scent of wet earth and primal fear. For 3 weeks, the Silverwood pack had lived under a pall of grief and terror. Their Alpha was gone, traded like a prisoner of war to a monster from the deep. Their Luna, Princess Aurora, was a ghost of her former self, her silver eyes burning with a cold, silent fury. She had not wept. She had planned. She stood now in the center of the clearing, alone. Behind her, hidden in the tree line, her pack and the combined strength of the Blackwood and Silvermane warriors held their breath. Before her, the river water coalesced, rising into the form of Queen Seraphine. At her side, held by chains of swirling water and enchanted kelp, was Adrian. He was pale, his powerful frame tense, his eyes, those ember-bright eyes, hollow with despair. But they flickered with shock, then dread, as he saw Aurora. "Luna," Seraphine purred, her voice like the cruelest tide. "Have you come to witness our departure? Or to finally say goodbye?" Aurora's voice did not waver. It rang out, clear and sharp, cutting through the siren's melodic poison. I have come to challenge you, Seraphine. A duel of honor. Ancient law, older than any pack, older than the seas you claim to rule, dictates that a mate may challenge for the freedom of their claimed. Seraphine's laughter was a sound of shattering icebergs. You challenge me? A little wolf who plays at being a queen? You are nothing. Then you have nothing to fear, Aurora said, her gaze locked on Adrian. She saw the warning in his eyes, the desperate shake of his head. She ignored it. The terms are simple. A fight to the death. If you win, you keep your prize, and my pack will never challenge you again. If I win, you release him. You break your claim, and you return to the depths, forever forbidden from our lands. Amusement curled Seraphine's lips. The arrogance of a primordial being faced with a mortal's defiance was absolute. She saw not a warrior, but an insect. Very well, little wolf. I accept your amusing challenge. Let your mate watch me break you. With a flick of her wrist, the water chains around Adrian tightened, binding him to a rock at the river's edge, a spectator in his own nightmare. Aurora shifted. Her silver-white wolf was a streak of moonlight against the dark grass. Seraphine did not change form. She simply advanced, and the very air around her became her weapon. The fight was not a battle. It was a brutal humiliation. Aurora was swift and fierce, her attacks fueled by a mother's rage and a mate's love. But she was utterly outmatched. Seraphine moved with impossible speed, dodging every lunge with contemptuous ease. She didn't even bother to attack at first, letting Aurora exhaust herself. Then, the real punishment began. A whip of freezing water snapped out, slicing across Aurora's flank. She yelped in pain, stumbling. A concussive blast of sound hurled her into a tree, the impact cracking wood and bone. Another wave of force slammed her into the ground, pinning her. Aurora struggled, her body screaming in agony, her vision blurring. She was dragged through the mud, a plaything for a vengeful god. Adrian roared against his bonds, the sound raw and helpless. Seraphine stood over Aurora's broken, panting form. Pathetic, she hissed. This is the strength that you thought could defy me? Look at him. See his despair. This is your doing. She raised a hand, water forming into a sharp, glacial spear above her heart. Goodbye, little wolf. It was the moment of ultimate arrogance, the split second she looked toward Adrian to savor her victory. Aurora's eyes, clouded with pain, saw not the siren, but the riverbank where Adrian was bound. She saw the water chains that held him, fed by Seraphine's power. And she remembered Elara's frantic research, the ancient texts that spoke of a siren's strength being absolute, but rooted in concentration, in the song. With the last vestige of her strength, Aurora did not lunge at Seraphine. Instead, she rolled onto her back and howled. It was not a howl of pain, but of pure, defiant love. A signal. From the tree line, a dozen wolves, their ears stuffed with wax, charged. They did not charge Seraphine. They charged the riverbank where Adrian was held, a diversion, a momentary chaos. Seraphine's head snapped toward the noise, her concentration fractured for a single, fleeting heartbeat. The water spear above Aurora wavered. It was all the opening she needed. Aurora wasn't strong enough to stand, so she didn't try. She thrust her one good hind leg upward with every ounce of desperate, dying strength she possessed. Her claws, aimed not at the siren's heart, but at the base of the glacial spear above her. The force of her kick shattered the water ice construct. The spear exploded. A long, lethal shard of ice, propelled by the force of the blast and the remnants of Seraphine's own power, shot downward. It struck true. The shard impaled Seraphine through her chest. Her eyes, those deep green pools of ancient malice, widened in shock and utter disbelief. She looked down at the ice protruding from her body, a weapon of her own making. A choked, gurgling sound escaped her lips, the song dying in her throat. The beautiful melody was replaced by the silent, expanding shock of her own mortality. She dissolved, not into water, but into a fine, cold mist that scattered on the wind, leaving only a fading, dissonant sigh. The magical bonds holding Adrian vanished. He was at Aurora's side in an instant, shifting to his human form, gathering her broken, bloody body into his arms. Her silver fur was matted with dirt and crimson, her breathing shallow. "Aurora, my love, my foolish, brave, incredible love," he choked out, tears streaming down his face, mingling with the blood on her coat. She shifted back weakly, her human form battered and bruised. She cupped his face, her hand trembling. "Told you I'd get you back," she whispered, a ghost of a smile touching her split lips. Their kiss was not gentle. It was a desperate, hungry collision of souls, a messy fusion of tears, blood, and the taste of hard-won survival. It was a vow, a reunion, a promise screamed into the silence left by their enemy's demise. They held each other as if the world were ending, because for a moment, it had. Under the moonlight, surrounded by their pack, they were no longer just an Alpha and Luna. They were survivors. They were two halves of a whole that had been torn apart and violently, miraculously, stitched back together. The terrestrial world was finally, truly, at peace. Not because all evil was gone, but because they had proven that even against an impossible foe, their love was a force of nature unto itself. And as the moon shone down on them, their hungry kisses slowly gentling into tender affirmations, the forest around them began to breathe again. The night birds resumed their song, this time a melody of hope, not of dread. The war was over.